Morning campers, coffee time. Back in Ireland after Spain, and strangely there's a heat wave. But anyway, I had to do this video. I'm going to call this video the Citizen Vigilante Review, the real Batman, question mark. There's a line in this film: I do this for you until you learn to do it for yourself. Is this the most powerful film I've seen in a long time? Yeah, it is. Is it for the faint of heart? No. Is this film a warning, or is it a manifestation of more violence? That is a big question for this film. If you've not heard of the film, it's called Citizen Vigilante. It is directed by a German director, Uwe Boll. I think I've said his name right. And Uwe Boll is, he's been a director for 25 years, I think. And if you look him up, it says here, Uwe Boll is a polarizing German filmmaker known for his action, horror, and video game adaptations. His early career featured high-profile video game adaptations, while his later career shifted to independent, politically charged thrillers and crime dramas. He did a load of stuff in the early 2000s, the kind of film I wouldn't watch because I don't care about video games and zombies and vampires and stuff like that. I wouldn't normally watch this type of film, to be honest, but I thought it was really important. He did bring out a trilogy called the Rampage series in 2009, 14 and 16, and then he became a restaurateur for 8 years throughout COVID, presumably, and came back into filmmaking with First Shift in 2024, about a veteran New York police officer and his rookie partner dealing with violence in New York City. In 2025, he did a film called Run, which is a political action film that focuses on boat migrants and a small town. And then this film, Citizen Vigilante, a hard-hitting vigilante film starring Armie Hammer, which debuted direct to audiences on social platforms. The reason I watched it yesterday is because Elon Musk posted it, which is not an insignificant thing for him to do. Let's put it that way. The film itself was refused a rating in Germany, which basically meant cinemas won't show it because it's not rated. So although they haven't directly censored it, it is censored. Since yesterday, when it got released on, if you want to go to X at Citizen Vigilante, that's the account for the film, at Elon Musk, obviously is Elon Musk, and I think Elon posted this morning that it had 8 million views from his post and 5 million views directly, or the other way around. So it's up to 13 million minimum at the time of writing in 24 hours, which is quite extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, I don't know how Uwe Boll is going to monetize it or get his money back from making it, but I think the word you could say right now is that it's infamous already. Why is this important? Well, there's a number of things I want to take you through if you don't want to watch this film. This review will be full of spoilers, by the way, so if you want to watch the film without being spoiled, don't turn off this video now. Now, when it came out, or when I first heard of it, I was fascinated. Firstly, I was concerned about the violence, especially towards Muslims. I don't condone violence in any way. I don't think all Muslims deserve violence, but criminals do. And the fact that there's a lot of criminals that happen to be illegal immigrants in Western countries that have been, where the victims of which have been denied justice by governments, police, judiciary, etc., that is the issue here. That has come to a boiling point where a filmmaker has decided, fuck this, I'm going to make a film about it. And I'm going to do it despite the fact that I know the system won't want anybody to see it. I'm going to do it despite the fact that the system probably won't allow me to get my money back on this. It has to be done. Now that is, for me, what art is. And as somebody who started a podcast in 2020 in the middle of the biggest psychological operation in history, trying to tell people not to do this, at least, and who got censored. I got 2 YouTube channels taken down without warning, without any strikes, anything, for different reasons. But I did get censored with poetry. I mean, I'm a poet. You can get my book God Wins on Amazon if you want to read a summation of the COVID years in poetical form and images. Go and get that book. You know, I got videos taken down for medical misinformation. They're poems. How can a poem have medical misinformation in the same way? How can a painting have medical misinformation? How can any form of art contain misinformation? It's art. You know, to my mind, the misinformation that we've been getting has come from mainstream media and Hollywood. That's where the true misinformation has come from, which is why a lot of reviews of this film are saying this is the film that Hollywood would never touch. And it's true. It would never touch this. I mean, I've just been watching reviews of the new Supergirl film today. Go and watch Critical Drinker's review of Supergirl and you'll see what I mean. Just utter slop. Given hundreds of millions of dollars for a load of slop. And at least this film, which actually watches more like a documentary, the way it's shot, it is very hyper real. And I do warn you, if you do go and watch it on X if you do want to watch it, and you can cast it to your TV so you're watching a movie if you want to. It's not for the faint of heart in terms of violence. I don't like violence at all, but I thought I'm going to have to sit through this film because it's too important for me not to watch. And it's a pivotal moment in our society where a film like this is even made, let alone put out in the way that it's been put out. And just for avoidance of doubt for anybody watching this, I do actually think this film is part of a much bigger operation to wake people up. You know, because in the film, I'll go through some of the key points in this film, which proves to me that it is designed to shock people into going, right, we've got to do something. Whether that is, you know, getting people to, the negative reviews of this film are going to be saying things like, this is inciting violence. I don't think it is, because the violence in the film is unrealistic to a degree. Even though it's a realistically shot film, the character played by Armie Hammer, very well by Armie Hammer, he's a millionaire, right? This is why I said, is it the real Batman? Because this guy's got unlimited resources, unlimited weapons. He has a military background. He's a little bit like the Terminator in the film, and he's hardcore. You know, he's just not. He's giving everybody a chance to answer for their crimes, and in some cases, he's letting them off and giving them a warning. And he gives everybody a warning. Actually, he even gives the police a warning. Says, "This is your last warning. I'm going to do this if you don't do that." And he's up against the system, and he's had enough of it. And then he's talking to the people, saying, "I do this for you until you learn to do it for yourself." Now, what I think the message there is, to do it for yourself is to stand up against a system that is clearly failing its people. That's the apocalyptic viewpoint about that. Another viewpoint could be, you know, I do this for you until you learn to shoot other people for yourself. I don't think violence it's not the way forward for us, to just go out and an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Is that the answer? That's up for you to, you know, I'm still contemplating that, to be honest. But when I was watching it, I was thinking, you know, I used to run a theatre company 30 years ago, and I was very interested in the idea of theatre being a reflection of society. And I remember I wrote a play called The Mess, which was really about my time in the Royal Air Force, set in an officer's mess, and it centered around the death of my friend when I was 18, 19, and the reaction to that death and what it meant. And I remember sending this off to theatres around the UK at the time and getting these rejection letters that were saying, well, it was very good, very well written, but could you make it more about this? And it was clear to me then, even back in, what year would that be? About 1995. And that was also clear to me, the TV work that I did, that there was an agenda back then. Back then, You had David Beckham wearing handbags, getting tattoos, wearing a skirt. The whole new man idea was being pushed then, which is quite a long time ago now, 31 years ago, is it? Yeah, I think it is. So this has been going on for a long time, this misinformation, this steering of society in a certain direction, to the point where many cherished properties, intellectual properties like Doctor Who, Star Wars and Star Trek in particular, have been subverted to the point of termination and complete and abject failure. The last series of Star Trek, which was as woke as it's possible to be, got less views than one of Critical Drinker's reviews videos, for example. And that's like $100 million series, and the recent Doctor Who just got cancelled because they completely ostracized their audiences by destroying the backstory, by just making it as woke as it's possible. Nobody wants to watch this shit. So this is interesting because the millions of people that have watched this in the last 24 hours, hopefully it's getting to people that need to see it, you know, and hopefully it's provoking conversation and reaction and responses. Hopefully not in a violent way, but in a way that makes people go, oh shit, this really is a problem. I mean, that is kind of summed up towards the end of the film. There's a dedication to the thousands, hundreds of thousands of rape victims in particular. And obviously the film actually starts, the first few minutes of this film are very, very well done and very difficult to watch because it's a very sort of domestic scene of a mother with a young son doing her shopping, coming out of the shop, and then just getting murdered in broad daylight by a guy with obviously an illegal immigrant with a big machete, big knife, who just stabs her in the neck. It's very uncomfortable to watch. It's horrific to watch, but it's a reflection of exactly what's been going on. And but it isn't just about illegal immigrants, and I'll get to that more in a minute. But what I was thinking of in terms of how theatre as a mirror, or film as a mirror, how art should be, and you can go back to, I'm going to quote Shakespeare. Shakespeare didn't write any of those plays, but that's another story for another day. But in Hamlet, Hamlet advises a group of travelling actors on how to perform naturally, and he says, whose end, both at the first and now, was and is to hold, as 'twere, the mirror up to nature, to show virtue her own feature, scorn her own image, and the very age and body of the time his form and pressure. Which is pretty cool and completely correct. And there's also a quote from Yasmina Reza, who's a more modern playwright, who just said, theatre is a mirror, a sharp reflection of society. That's exactly what it should be. But if you go down, I searched this on Google. I know about Google, don't start leaving comments about that. But there's a quote here from Bertolt Brecht, which says, in contrast to a simple reflection, Brecht famously viewed, and I think he was German, from the 50s, he was like a very famous playwright. And he said, art should be a hammer used to shape society, famously quoting, art is not a mirror held up to reality, but a hammer with which to shape it. Now, Brett there is basically putting forward a communistic viewpoint on what art should be, which one I wholeheartedly disagree with. Wholeheartedly. And really, you know, what Shakespeare was saying is exactly what it should be. And we should be encouraging all art form, whether it's comfortable or not, to be a reflection of our society. Otherwise, what's the point of it? I mean, in Brecht's version of this, art becomes propaganda to push an agenda, which obviously he had an agenda, so that's why he wanted to push that, because he believed that it would be a way of forming a better society. But who is he to say what a better society is? I'd much rather have artists being unafraid. And in Hugh Bowles' case, this man, his surname should really be Hugh Balls, because the guy's got balls of steel to put this film out, and thank God he has. And he's an imperfect character. You know, he makes very violent films with quite a twisted sense of humour, actually, which I'm not surprised by, because I've known some Germans in my time, and they do have a very good sense of humour on the whole. and often quite a twisted one, which I'm not surprised considering what Germany's been through, the same as the UK. So I'm going to give you the key points of the film that stood out for me. I've actually made notes on this. For once, I've made notes. So let's talk about Armie Hammer first. Now, he's quite an extraordinary actor, and I thought I'd have a little look into him because I first noticed Armie Hammer in the film with the Man from U.N.C.L.E. film, which was made by Guy Ritchie. Wasn't a big hit, which was a shame because it was actually a very good film. And Henry Cavill. Now, Henry Cavill has also been through a similar kind of tough period, but Armie Hammer got hammered by Hollywood because of part of the Me Too thing. There were a lot of accusations, sexual accusations against him, and he got blacklisted, basically. And apparently he ended up selling timeshare for 3 years on the Cayman Islands because he separated from his wife. Apparently he cheated on his wife, but then he said it was all consensual, and none of these accusations went anywhere. So I don't know the truth about Armie Hammer. I just know that the Me Too movement was particularly nasty and really a cover story to deflect people away from the paedophilia in Hollywood. So the fact that he's been given such a hard time by the industry that he was in is really interesting. I've read an interview with him where he says that the tide's turning for him. He got dumped by his talent agency, and he said he said in an interview that people are now saying in Hollywood, "Well, Jesus, look what that guy went through." I don't know how innocent he is or not, but the fact that he's coming back and doing things like this kind of also kind of bit of a revenge for him, if he is innocent, of being a sexual predator. I'm pretty sure he must be innocent, otherwise why would he come back? I don't know. That's for you to decide and go and do some more research on. But I do think he's a very powerful actor, and I even though I didn't like his character in this film, I did enjoy watching his performance because he was totally committed to this role. There's a few scenes in this film that are worthy of note. One that was very personal for me was a scene in a bar where the Interpol policeman who's chasing him down is sitting in this bar, very coincidentally, and sees him. There's two men talking to two women, and the two men are obviously scumbags, and basically they date rape, drug these drinks. They get 4 shots, and they put the date rape drugs into 2 of them, and then the girls are off, and then he comes over, Armie Hammer, and says, basically somehow gets these guys to go and check on the girls. He swaps the drinks over. So they come back and they get the date rape drug instead of the girls, and he comes and tells the girls, "Go home, these guys were going to date rape you." And both of my daughters have been not date raped, but had their drinks spiked in the last couple of years in Ireland. And it's a horrible, horrible, horrible crime, because you can, especially as a father, because you'll never know who did it. You'll never know who did it, and it's horrific. So I was very pleased to see that scene in the film, even though I've seen a couple of reviews saying, why is that in the film? Well, I think it's in the film, and these are white guys, by the way. They're not Muslims. So this film is just about justice from evil people doing stuff that goes unchecked by the authorities. And there's a big theme running through the film where you've got this Interpol policeman chasing him down, and they have a few chats, and there's a really powerful chat towards the end where he's saying the Interpol officer is standing by his belief and his oath to protect the society, but the society is not protecting its citizens, and that's the big theme, I think, throughout the film, which is why I think that character survives towards the end, even though he gets his face half blown off, and he gets told by the Armie Hammer character, "You need to tell your government now, this is going to keep happening until you start listening." And it's actually well set up for a sequel, to be honest. I wouldn't be surprised if there was one. So that date rape scene was, for me, extremely powerful. There was also a scene with 3 kids on a bus who refused to pay their bus ticket, and he ends up paying their bus ticket, but then he gives them a chat. He has a conversation with them, and he says, "Look, you guys, this is not the way to behave, right? These are not violent, super violent criminals, right? These are teenagers that just don't give a shit, and they've lost all sense of decency, or they've just never had it. And he gives them a warning. I think one goes to pull a knife, and he puts a gun on him. He said, "This is your luckiest day in your life that I'm not gonna shoot you on this bus." But then he sees them later, and they're beating somebody up and filming it for social media, and then he basically breaks one of their hands and says, "You were given a warning, and now I'm going to break your hands." And it's justice, right? That's what's going. It's not very nice to watch, but it is justice. And hopefully the kids on the bus will learn the lesson. And I hope that kids watching this who think it's okay to behave like that will sit and think, well, should I be doing that? One of the best things about this film is that there is a judge who basically, there's a 14-year-old girl that's been gang raped by, I think, is it 7 young kids. And this is a theme. The film's not edited chronologically, so it does flip between timelines to get to the point at the end of the film. And the judge let these kids off because they haven't assimilated into society. The judge actually says that they were victims as much as the 14-year-old girl that got gang raped, and that really hit hard. And the character, Armie Hammer's character, basically gets this judge in a car, fills him full of heroin, drives him off into the countryside, and slits his wrists after giving him a lecture on why he's doing it to him. But there's also a really kind of funny scene, in a way, where he's trying to explain to the judges off his head on heroin, but still obviously can hear him. And he said, "People are sheep, let me prove it to you." And he just, in the car, he goes across the road, there's a car coming towards him, and he just speeds up towards it. And instead of crossing the other side and going past him, he proves that people are sheep, because this guy just goes off the road, goes into a ditch, spins and blows up and probably dies. And he just uses that to make a point. See, they're sheep. They'd rather kill themselves, or they'd rather put themselves in danger than break the law. And that's a very powerful point, I thought. And I think in the last 6 years, that's been a really powerful point, that people have been afraid of a legal system that isn't actually legal. And they're afraid of the consequences of not doing what everybody else does. Didn't 2020 really prove that to the whole world? To not do what everybody else was doing took real balls. And if you're one of those people, my hat always goes off to you, because that took incredible courage. And I mean, even in the airport from Spain, there was a big notice, and it said mandatory, and it was like big, like they were shouting it. Now, mandatory does not mean anything. It's still voluntary, but you know, people see the word mandatory and they go, "Oh no, I've got to comply, I've got to do what I'm told to do." No, you don't. Do not comply. Do not comply with unjust rules, and do not comply with a system that is literally murdering not only friends and family and your society, but your culture. That's what the big message is here. And yeah, he kills the judges, which I think is, pretty powerful stuff. I've covered that on the people being sheep. The film is not racist. There's going to be people saying this is a racist film and against Muslims. It isn't. It isn't. There is a big story around the gang rape of this 14-year-old girl, which is very, very powerful. And he basically gets the whole family together, and he goes into their apartment. It's the father, the mother, the sister, and one of the Yusef, the ringleader of the rapists, who's a young kid. And he just asks them, what values are you bringing your children up on? And the father says, well, I'm teaching them the values of the Quran. And he said, well, if those are your values, then this is not really compatible with our society. And then he says, and then the Yusef says, I'm really sorry, we're being treated mental, blah, blah, blah. And obviously it's bullshit. And he says, he's very cold in this film, and he just moves the gun with the silencer on, and then points to the sister and says, that's interesting what you just said, Yusef, but you, the sister, you said on social media she deserved to be raped. And she's got the gun pointed at her head, and she basically goes, well, yeah, she did deserve to be raped, because they're showing their legs, they're showing their boobs, they deserve to be raped. That was powerful. And then he gets Yusuf to ring up all the other co-conspirators in the gang rape and invites them round, and then basically he executes the whole family, and then he executes all the rapists as they come through the door. It's hardcore. It is hard. I'm not joking, it is hardcore. And also he kills the police. Now this is almost comical, the way he does it. They find a place where they think he's staying, and they raid with a SWAT team, and the Interpol guy is there as well. And Armie Hammer's put himself in a big metal bunker, and basically got 2 guns there, and all the SWAT team come in, and he says, right, I'm giving you 5-second warning, and then I'm going to shoot you all. And then he shoots them all. And it's not my type of film. There's some graphic stuff there where faces are coming off, and it's not very nice at all, but it is kind of comical in a dark sense, because the Interpol guy, after they've all been shot, there's a few of them left, and he says, open this up, and they open it up, and then boom, of course, he's booby-trapped, and he escapes. And the Interpol guy gets half his face blown, as I've already said, and it's extremely... It's extreme. That's what it is. There's a few weird scenes in it as well. I've written a few down here. I mean, like, they're not all weird anyway, but I was wondering when I was watching, I had to skip this scene. I don't like scenes like this personally, but there was a sex scene with a prostitute with Armie Hammer, and I thought, what is this doing in the film? And I was like, what's he trying to say about the main character? And he's having sex basically with this prostitute, but then he notices damp up on the wall, and he stops what he's doing, and he goes and he starts asking her whether she gets the clients to wash, and does she open the window because the damp is coming in, and he owns the building, and you're like, this is, I think Uwe Boll is trying to give a bit of depth to the character, because he's a disassociated character, ex-military, disassociated. His father built the business. He inherited the business, and his father's gone, and he's very cold to the staff, and very cold about people who don't pay their debts, and he's disassociated. And there's no love in this man's life. He has a very firm sense about justice, but there's no love in his life, and he's having sex with a prostitute. It's just very distasteful. But his interest in the damp was actually very interesting, because there was another scene earlier in the film where he's going to one of his properties and noticing broken bits of mortar in the brick and picturing everything in minute detail. I don't know whether that's... I haven't worked out exactly what he's trying to say about the character there, but the disassociation side of it is interesting. He's not a likable character. You wouldn't want to go for a drink with this guy, I don't think. Maybe some of you would, I don't know. But yeah, one of the most powerful parts of the film for me as well was it's a beautiful, very simple, I don't know what's the word, I've forgotten what the word, composition, where there's a man sat on the sofa, and it becomes obvious that this is the father of the 14-year-old girl that's been raped, and they're watching things play out through the television, because there is a constant newsreel going on about this vigilante. The film starts with people saying, this is just what the world needs, Germany needs this, England needs this, and you have the father and the daughter, and her kind of relief when she hears that all the rapists have been taken out is tangible. And there's also a scene where he goes into a hospital, and there's a rape victim in the hospital, and he asks her what she wants to happen, and she says she wants them to go to prison. Now he doesn't answer that, but then he gets to the point where he says, look, well, you could do that, it could take years, you might not win, you're going to get assassinated through the whole process. Do you want justice? And she says yes, and it's very powerful. So yeah, that is interesting. There is also a couple of things that point to this being part of what I think is a military operation, but there's going to be people who watch this who disagree with that. That's fine, it's up to you. This is just my point of view. And that is, he does a speech when he talks about it's time for we the people. He specifically uses those 3 words, we the people, to stand up against this. And there is a screenshot of a news story where it says the number of immigrant attacks have gone up by 17%. You don't need to be a genius to know that the 17th letter of the alphabet is Q. The White House has just been Q posting in the last few days. Elon Musk is part of the Q operation. 17 is there. Elon Musk posted this movie. Make of that what you will. So, in conclusion, does this film encourage violence or act as a start warning that people need to act to save their society? I'd like to think it's the latter. And I think it's the reason it's so shocking and violent is to wake people up from their slumber. That is my opinion. I don't think films actually encourage. I think it's this idea that films encourage violence is nonsensical, because even if you go back to Hamlet and Macbeth, you know, these are all extremely violent pieces of theatre. You've got the movie is full of violence. You know, John Wick is. I can't watch a John Wick film. It's so bloody ultra violent. I can't watch it. Does that encourage people out to go and do, you know, incredible acts of vigilante murders? No, I don't think that's ever been proven, except with the occasional case study that you could point to Hollywood far more than this one film. So tell me what you think in the comments. Too important a film to ignore, that's for sure. Don't watch it if you are sensitive, but let me know what you think, and God bless you. Question everything. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon.